When we want to reach an online service, what do? We get our mobile phone or mobile device, we use it to control the TV, to get updated with the news, to control our electronic devices at home if we have a smart home with IoT, or medical services online, everything. E-autos, we manage everything remotely. Now, these services are reachable over the internet, and to access those services, we need to use its name of a service, a domain name, or its address, the IP address. And since the beginning of Corona, there's a huge increase in cyber attacks. And the attacks mostly start with phishing emails, such as impersonating a bank or something. And this email tricks the user into providing their personal information or downloading a malware or ransomware. And all your data and files can get encrypted or leaked. We recently saw a surge of such attacks against high-performance cluster computing clusters. Some suspect, for instance, that the attackers were looking for research on corona vaccination. There are a lot of attacks against universities and medical centers and hospitals and even security firms. So here you can see one example of a phishing email which was pretended to be from a bank. Now, there are different ways to do such attacks, whether it's phishing emails or traffic hijacks, where I distribute malware, where the attackers distribute malware. There are different ways to do such attacks, but the easiest is most effective one is by hijacking traffic. What does traffic hijack mean? To answer this question, let us go back in time. Imagine how post delivery was 500 years ago. A carriage with horses was delivering post from Herzogtum to Gerzogtum, from Mittelalter Hessen to Schwaben, for instance. And the postman had to go through a lot of villages. He's super exhausted and his horses are exhausted. He wants to drink and he wants to sleep. And he is riding his horses to deliver post. Now imagine there is a really good citizen, a good Samaritan. He says, follow me. I know where the Großherzog lives. It's really close to where I live in Samaria. So if you go to Schwaben through Samaria, you will even arrive much faster. And I will give you water and you can even rest and sleep in my place. So the postman thinks that's a good deal. Now, the Samaria, which is also called Shomron in Hebrew or Aramaic, is actually located in Israel and not on the way to Schwaben from Hessen. But the poor postman has no idea about this, so he travels to Samaria. But the Samaritan actually, all what he wants is to get his hands on the post of the Großherzog of Hessen. So the reality now in internet era is not much different. You see, you divert the horses through the wrong path and you try to get your hands on the communication. Here's one example of a traffic hijack attack, which is very similar to this metaphorical example that I gave you from 500 years ago. So this attack took place and was not noticed for over more than half a year. In this example, you can see two government ministries communicating. One is in DC and the other one is Mexico. Now, someone else was redirecting the traffic through Moscow. It's really similar. Someone was saying, essentially telling the internet communication that actually to reach DC, when you go from Mexico, you should go through Moscow. And that's really similar to our Samaritan story, as you may notice. Someone in Moscow could easily read all the exchanged messages and even manipulate them. And to hide the fact that the attack was going on, after reading the traffic, the attacker was sending it back to the recipient. So here you can see the red arrows is the path that the traffic took after it was redirected and hijacked. And the green arrows is the correct path that the traffic should have been taken. Now you may ask how common such attacks are. They are thousands a year against financial institutions, weapons company, banks, medical institutions, government, cryptocurrency, and much more. And simply everything is affected. And if we want to be able to identify the destination that we are communicating with in the internet, or the digital assets which hold the services, we need to use something which will prove to us who they really are. For instance, we want to be able to answer questions. Is this really eBay? Is this Amazon? Is the sender of this email really my bank? Is this really the ministry in Washington, D.C.? Is this the Großherzog of Hessen? Or is the Großherzog of Hessen really in Samaria? We know that is not true. To answer this question and many other questions, we use certificates in the internet. And certificates are just digital documents that prove that the other communication endpoint is really who he says he is. Now, the problem is, even when issuing certificates in the internet, it's a challenging question. It's not so simple, and often due to bugs or human errors, there are vulnerabilities. For instance, recently, we at Fraunhofer SIT showed that certificates used for web are vulnerable, and cyber criminals can issue fraudulent certificates for services which they do not legitimately own. So a lot can go wrong, and today we will look at a few perspectives of certification of digital assets in the internet and of the challenges that we face when building secure systems in the internet.